Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you're from. I hear that Hunter is actually on the call right now. Hunter, if you're in there, I don't see your name in the list. If you can just let me know, maybe you can raise your hand on the call so I can unmute you. Let's see if I can find. I see you there. There we are. Cool. How's it going, man?
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, doing great. Great. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, of course.
Really appreciate it. So, yeah, we're here for interview with Hunter George. Um, Hunter, if you don't mind me going through your bio, I just want to let people know who you are and kind of what you do.
Sure.
Awesome. So, Hunter George is the executive director of the Guild of Music Supervisors. He's originally from Reno, Nevada. He's worked in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles for quite some time. He serves the Guild of Music Supervisors as their executive director, coordinating day-to-day operations and planning special events all year round. He was music coordinator for the WB TV series Training Day, based on the film of the same name, produced by Bruckheimer TV. In 2016, Evan directed 3 feature music videos for artists, including Finnish singer-songwriter Peppina for the upcoming film Married Young. That probably has been released by now. Sorry, I think this bio might be a couple years old.
That's okay.
Yeah, just let me know if anything's like incorrect or whatever. In
Yeah.
2014, he began working as a project manager for the new media for multi-platinum rock musician Yoshiki, who with his band X Japan has sold over 30 million albums worldwide.
Mhm.
Through this, Evan has worked extensively with Stanley's POW Entertainment, Billboard, Live Nation, Salesforce, Band Merch, Grammy Foundation, FHPA, Total Assault, Hollywood Reporter, New York Comic Con, Stanley's Kamikaze, Switch Entertainment, Sanrio, Hello Kitty, and many more.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of different experiences before that. He's also graduated at Los Angeles Film School where he started. So,
Yeah.
and then about the Guild of Music Supervisors, just want to read that real quick. The Guild of Music Supervisors, for anybody who doesn't know, is a nonprofit organization with the mission to promote the craft of music supervision for the mutual benefit of all media stakeholders in
Mhm.
film, television, games, advertising, trailers, and emerging media. Provides an environment in which the knowledge, resources, and skills specific to music supervision are expanded and shared as a means to sustain the highest level of professionalism and evolve the collective expertise. The Guild is an educational and professional resource for music supervisors and for those working in related fields across the media spectrum. So, with all that said, Hunter, just wanted to ask first, like, what's your day-to-day job like at the Guild?
Yeah. So I spin a number of plates with the Guild, but also with my other endeavors. I've been the executive director for about 6 years. I started out doing just like social media stuff. And as you guys see, a lot of my background comes in social media marketing and branding and a lot of that stuff. And that's kind of how I got my start in Los Angeles, while I was like learning music production and doing like the DJ beat battle grind. I was also kind of like learning how to kind of self-promote brand and get more into like marketing, just because of the cost of promotion and cost of website design, cost of logos, all that stuff, music videos, all that stuff. You kind of have a lot of either you're paying someone a lot of money to do it, or you're doing a bad job yourself, if you're not knowing, all those skill sets. So I got into that really heavily. So I started, just long story long, I got into the Guild through by way of they had a need for social media help, website help, event, kind of branding help. And while all these other folks were kind of coming in as like, I want to be a supervisor, I want to be a composer, I want to pitch my music, all this stuff. They obviously didn't have a music supervisor for the Guild because there's not that need, but they did have a lot of needs in the branding realm. So in addition to my music background, this was something that I've always found is something so useful, so helpful to not only my own personal career, but to any prospective employer or creative, whether it's an artist or whether it's an organization like the Guild, to just have, because you're kind of, especially when you're going through that like intern route where you're working with a bunch of people who maybe even went to like Berklee School of Music or all these like high level, high profile USC, all these colleges where I'm a poor schlupp from Reno, Nevada. I went to a local college, UNR, and then I went to the LA Recording School. I definitely, in standing next to someone of that caliber, you kind of get lumped into well, hopefully you can bring something different to the table. And I think I've always set aside this like avenue of branding that folks, don't always have those skill sets. So as far as it goes with the Guild, a lot of my focus was just building their social media presence, creating visual imagery, doing all of the event branding. So that got me into more of like a sponsorship avenue, because a lot of what we do for the events is, we take on these sponsors, whether they be record labels like Sony or Warner Chappell, Warner Brothers, Universal, all those companies, they'll sponsor our events. And then so there's a very delicate balance you need to strike with them as far as making sure their logos are in the right places. So I started to get really close with these folks at these various companies. And then as well as that kind of started to grow relationships and become more invested in making them feel like they're getting the value out of their sponsorships. And then over the course of 6 years, a lot of these sponsors become, I see a lot of Berkeley reps in the building. So yeah, you guys are, when we stand in a room together, it kind of, you guys have a lot more going on in that realm. So, and then, so ultimately, as far as sponsor relations are concerned, a lot of these folks become like colleagues and friends, and we see each other at, we'll all go to maybe 1 or 2 events a week. Sometimes it's more, just based on like what's happening around Los Angeles. And if you guys aren't in Los Angeles, it's kind of one of the places where a lot of these like hubs of, like I live in Hollywood. I'm looking out on like Hollywood horizon here, and it's basically like in this square 3-mile radius, like there's possibly a big event happening, tonight or tomorrow night or whatever. So and it's just really a really important component of what I do with the Guild, is networking and sponsor relations and the community outreach stuff that we do. Another facet of that is the affiliate guild. So I'm a Guild of Music Supervisors, executive director, but also I'm a Grammy Next 2019 class member. So I'm affiliated with the Recording Academy, and I'm finding that niche is very small as far as like the community is probably a good 400 to 500 people total in Los Angeles that are actually active working folks. And so once you start to get to know who these people are, or at least a good pie slice of them, your navigation through the business is like a lot easier, and if you earn their trust and respect and friendliness, goes a long way. So the fact of the matter is, with all these folks, they like to work with their friends, and they like to be able to say like, how would I sit in this room with this person for 8, 10, 15, 20 hours or whatever a day. So I think being a cool person, being nice and being friendly is like one of the biggest assets to succeeding here,
It's got to help, right?
Yeah.
You touched up on so many good points. I just wanted to maybe follow-up question with the networking. There's a lot of folks, some people not in LA, some people in LA. In terms of like networking, any suggestions you'd have for, just going about starting to network with people that are in the industry, whether they be supervisors or agencies?
Yeah. Well, I noticed Lori shouted out the Guild of Music Supervisors Conference. She was a volunteer. I think also a couple other folks were attending. And I think that for me, I got in luckily. So just as my background goes, I was working in the sneaker game. I was selling like, I was working in streetwear and rare Nike kind of that kind of culture. And that was great because I got to kind of like meet a lot of like high level producers that liked sneakers, and I had the access to get to these sneakers. So that put me in a kind of a cool category that I probably didn't deserve in a sense. But this one gentleman walked into my store one day and he was like, I just got off the set of Iron Man 2. Because, you strike up a conversation. You're like, oh, how are you? And I was like the marketing director at the time, but we would always just kind of work in the store and hang out and work in the front and meet people. And he was like, I got off the set of Iron Man 2. And I was like, oh, what does that mean though? Why are you doing that? And then he was like, oh, I'm the music supervisor on all the Marvel movies. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? And this was in, 2010, I think at this point, 2009. And, but I had no idea what music supervision was at that time. And And to be fair and honest, I think at that time it was very new. I think the Guild actually started in 2010. So when I somehow was like on this, I mean, it had been around for probably 10 years to 15 years at this point, like in its true form, but the Guild itself was not even, formed yet. So he was just a cool guy, and he was like, yeah, I do this, and I put these soundtracks together, and I was like, oh, cool, I make music. I am a music producer, and which, if anyone knows anything about the music supervisor status quo, is they don't really love being pitched to. So I bumblingly made my way through that as a young 22-year-old kid. But I was like, this is my in the business right now, though. So I get the hustle, And he was like, oh, yeah, cool. Take my coordinator's email down. And, I took his email, and then he gave me his phone number. And then I wouldn't pitch him my music. I wouldn't do any of that. I would just text him photos of cool shoes that were coming in, whether it was like a collaboration that was like done for Nike or whatever, Street Fighter or whatever. And then so he'd be like, oh, those are cool, or yeah, I'll come and get those or whatever. And I was kind of quickly becoming his sneaker guy, is what I would become known as to a lot of colleagues that know him. And this music supervisor ended up going on to do bigger and bigger projects with like Guardians of the Galaxy and all these. So I luckily just met this dude in my store, and he ended up becoming one of my big mentors. And that guy was Dave Jordan, and his lowly coordinator at the time is Jojo Villanueva, who went on to do like Straight Outta Compton and the Sing movies, or Sing movie, and then he's SVP of Sony Pictures. So it's just so weird because I was a young kid, and Jojo was kind of making his way as a coordinator through the business, and it kind of takes a few years to kind of start getting comfortable with this job of music supervision. But really it starts with just putting yourself in front of these people and earning a friendly relations. And like I said, I didn't pitch my music much more than that first conversation, but I did try to find a value for him to benefit by. So in this case, it was shoes. In other cases, it could be just like, again, like I said, website design or whatever you offer, whatever specialty you offer, earning more of I can offer you a value as opposed to, can you do something for me, is a huge, huge, huge thing. And one of the common threads in these networking scenarios that I find myself witnessing a lot with up and coming folks, or eager beavers, as it were, is really just gung ho about, I have great music, and what they are also inundated with is also a slew and a plethora of great music. So it's trying to find another value, or even just being a presence in the community where they know. Let's say, a big value with supervisors is like, let's say you offer a selection in a catalog of like authentic style, 1980s vintage, whatever, like a specific niche that they know they can go to you for. That's so much more valuable than I have music that sounds cinematic, or I have, movie or music that would go good in the movie that you're working on or whatever. Because they get really kind of, some of them are okay and cool about it, but some of them are kind of like, well, how would you know what this music's going to be like? So I always find myself just, I see the same faces, even when it comes to supervisors or whatever. I see the same faces as well as with like people who have great catalogs or people who make great music. And the more I see those faces, and the more those other supervisors see those faces, or folks like, what was the lady's name that volunteered? Lori, folks like Lori showing up and volunteering for something like a Guild event. You're putting yourself in that room, and at those Guild events, it's a very highly concentrated group of, this year at the conference at Los Angeles Film School, we had about 600 people in the audience. So we had 9 venues happening with panels happening simultaneously. We had 28 panels. So if you can do the math on what a 28 panel day looks like, with 4 to 5 panelists per panel, you're looking at 125, 130 people that are highly active executives, music supervisors, composers, and they're like the cream of the crop that are just also at these events hanging out in the reception times. And then as a volunteer, they notice you with the shirt, they see you actively engaging. It's a great time to say, oh, nice to meet you. I'm a, like, let's say a graduate of Berkeley or whatever your focus is. I just moved here from XYZ. I'd love to, maybe possibly take you out for coffee when this dies down, and just follow up with like a cool coffee hang and what I call like an informational interview, or just kind of figure out more about what they do in the business. And then that gives you that, like, I'm not pitching you my catalog at this event while they're like, I don't know what to do with this right now. And a lot of them actually don't take solicitations in events, or even flash drives or all that stuff. So your best way is to figure out by going to these events, and how you volunteer. I see a couple of people asking, Madeline, how you volunteer for these events is basically reaching out to our website, guildofmusicsupervisors.com. And people are, Levi, who I also know personally, who helped out with social media this year, just posted a link to the how to join section. Levi is a great volunteer example because he did one event, and then he was like, I'd love to get involved with social media. And we're like, well, guess what? We need the social media help. So come on through. And we actually we just put him to work, and he killed it. And, then what he did in addition to that is he reached out to me when I was done with my getting hit by a train on the next day. After about a week, he reached out and was like, let's meet up. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So, and I'm all about that. If people want to reach out, meet up, have coffee. I love coffee. I love hanging out. I love meeting new folks, especially young folks, because they get engaged. They are the next generation of this. And I've been doing this for 6 years, and I'm getting tired, I'm getting, and what I mean by that is, I was the first ever Guild employee, which to this day, I don't even know how that's even possible, but it just happened that way when it was this real small organization. And we're starting to grow, and I'm looking for young people that want to get in this game and want to get involved, but as a service to the Guild, and as a service to like helping, them formatively understand their careers and what music supervision is and how they fit into the world, whether it be through music supervision or licensing or publishing, all these other avenues. When I first got into this, I had no idea what all of it was. I was a sound engineer, I was a music producer, and I knew I wanted to make music and media, but I didn't know anything other than that. I didn't know what deal structures looked like. I didn't know what a music coordinator was. I didn't know what production music was. All that stuff was like, I heard about like PROs and BMI and ASCAP and all those, but I didn't know like the pitching and like the fast turnaround on TV music and all that stuff that you guys are probably well versed in at this point, or even just discovering through school or post school. But there's this like niche that a lot of even like major artists don't even really know about, that it's like the main avenue in which that folks are getting placements or finding jobs doing like, administrative work or publishing work, or, repping catalogs of like hundreds of thousands of tracks. And, it's a very high volume business that's going on. And as we grow into, out of traditional forms of media like film and TV, we're also finding like streaming is growing. Gaming is more explosive than I think anyone could have ever imagined. And all of these avenues, for instance, at our conference this year, we had Daniel Lanois, one of the music producers off U2 and Rolling Stones and a bunch of other like legendary, he's a Grammy-winning producer, got contracted by Rockstar Games to do the Red Dead Redemption 2 soundtrack. And he put this ensemble crew together. They went down to, I believe, New Orleans, and just like embedded themselves in like the soulful music of like the somewhat of an 1800s inspired soul music. And then they performed at our conference at the Ivor Theater. But you can just see that like the growth on even just a game like that, you just would find avenues that you wouldn't even know existed, I guess, if that makes sense. Ads, TV, trailers, all that stuff is actively looking for music. So just how do you fit into that niche, really,
Oh man, so much great stuff. It's basically like a master course in like 5 minutes of how to kind of get your foot in the door, how to not come across as somebody who's trying to make creative decisions for the person that you're trying to talk to. Just like trying to find a way to be helpful. It's just, it's really good. This is all like stuff that it makes it sound, as far as like your career, you weren't working in this like 7 or 8 years ago, and here you are, it's basically your day-to-day job now. And so it's just really inspiring for everybody to hear. In terms of like one thing I did want to touch upon, just because you have like such it sounds like a very extensive social media background, is do you see like a correlation between social media presence, maybe artist presence, and the sync game, and like with music supervisors? Could you talk about that maybe a little bit?
Yeah, and I can explain a little bit about how and why I got into social media. Well, a lot of it had to do with I was an active student, and the requirements of my education were like you can't really have a full-time job. So I was like working at this sneaker brand, and they were pretty cool about letting me start to work on more of a freelance level. And LA is, as you may or may not know, is very heavily on the freelance contractor status in a lot of realms. So I was kind of thrown into that mix. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I needed to pay rent. And so I was like using, my education for music. And I've been doing music since I was, I've been playing piano since I was 4, but I've been producing music since I was 17 years old. So I started out in like 2005, 2006. And so I was a big shot producer where I grew up in Reno, Nevada. And then when I moved to LA, it was like, oh yeah, no, yeah, there's a line of producers that are also big shots that you can just get in with. It's probably a mile long. So, good luck. And then, so I was sent on my merry way. And then I had to basically restart my whole career again. And so I spent a good 6 years learning how to do all this production stuff. And I built up this hip hop community. And then all of a sudden I realized like, oh man, I'm a young pup now. And so I was going to school. I figured I needed to go to school and learn how to like work on these large scale soundboards and be able to communicate as a producer to engineers and other people in the room. And as I was doing that, no one was paying me to do that. So, and I was also paying lots and lots of money, as you Berkeley college students know, or graduates know what that looks like. So got to pay rent, man. And LA is high cost of living. So that's kind of how I got into how can I make a living by utilizing these skill sets that I've learned, like Photoshop and music video stuff. And long story long, as I've gone through this journey over the course of, let's say like at this point, let's say like in 2011, I was fully freelance, and I've been doing it for about 5-6 years. And then started this company with one of my business partners that was just a fellow store member. We started a YouTube channel in like 2009 for the store, and we ended up growing it to be like 100,000 followers. And it was like we were doing sneaker reviews, and we were editing, and we were doing turnaround videos like every day. And so we kind of realized like we started a multimedia company without having to take the liability on to do that. And then but what we found is we started to go more into like working with we were pitching to record labels, artists, or whomever. And that's how I started working with that Yoshiki gentleman, who was a drummer for X Japan, but he was kind of more of like the band leader. He was like the Bono of X Japan. And if you guys look up X Japan, they're a very, very famous Japanese rock band, and J-rock is what they call it. Or he founded this style called Visual Kei, and they were essentially like Poison or some kind of like Japanese version of like the what I would call like butt rock here, but it was like very fabulous. Like they wore like makeup and things like that, and it was like a very punk rock era for Japan because they were very conservative. So I fell into this realm without even really knowing it, and then all of a sudden I was doing branding for Madison Square Garden, for Times Square. I had billboards in Times Square, and in like 3 months of working there, I had started to do branding for like Variety, Hollywood Reporter. And then they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, we're doing an animation with Stan Lee. And a little background on that is I used to just do comic book art. So just for fun. And that's how I got in with Dave Jordan, because he did all these movies, these Marvel movies. So I would do a piece of art just as for fun, like with Guardians of the Galaxy. And you guys can look all that stuff up on my social media. But I would do a piece of art, and I would just send him a print and just say, congratulations. That's all I would do. Congratulations on Guardians or whatever. And then they saw all that art and were like, oh, a guy just left our animation that we're developing. So we need a person to do this. And so you look like you could do this. And so I was like, I guess. And so now I'm all of a sudden just working with Stan Lee, because I took this job that I was bidding on jobs with my partner on Craigslist, like literally Craigslist. And so I was like, okay, I guess so. And then this all kind of makes sense in a realm because I was now doing, like you said, all the social media stuff for artists and how important that was to building that presence. I think a lot of media folks are looking at brand identity and social reach, not only for actors, but for musicians. And also like look at like Labyrinth, for instance, on the Euphoria show. Like I'm sure that the not only does he make very, very cool music, but his social media presence is a factor, you know? And same thing with like, you know, Tyler, the Creator on the Grinch movie. They're starting to kind of partner with these big brands. And as well as, you know, if you're starting to grow your presence as an artist in a genuine way, I would always say you may attach yourself to a actual brand for commercials, and then they can do a brand partnership in that realm. So I feel like it's super important. And not only that, just from a personal note, having gone through this process working with Yoshiki, the reason I started working with the Guild was through taking this job, because one of the guys that was helping with that brand was a guy named Jonathan McHugh at the time. And Jonathan McHugh was the secretary of the Guild of Music Supervisors, which at this time, even in 2013, I didn't even know what that was still. So, but I also was like, oh, you're a music supervisor. Cool. I know a music supervisor, you know. And in the interim, Dave helped me get my first internship at a studio prior to this at Sonic Fuel Studios. So I was working under a composer named Christopher Lennertz. And so he was like, oh, those are my people. I know all these people, but I just knew one or two folks, and then they knew the same folks. And then that helps in like, oh, you're good people because you worked with these good people, you know? And then, but it was a grind. This whole process has been like over the course of 10 years. And at this point I'd already been in LA 5 years. And so all of that stuff kind of really was a up and down of like, I was going through these really high marquee moments, and then some of these like really low LA fucking like my rent is due on 2 days and I don't have any of it, and I have to figure out ways to make this work, you know? And so when you're going through that process, or I'm sure a lot of you have already gone through that process or are going through that process, like, you know, it's not necessarily the easiest, and you just kind of have to navigate and stay consistent and stay committed. And you can get really wishy-washy as far as your, you know, as far as your mentality goes, like, should I be here? Should I be doing this? All of that kind of plays into factor. And it, for me, it's always been kind of about just like, I'm gonna do this. And if can you guys still hear me, by the way? Sorry.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay. I'm getting the internet connection thing. So, but anyway, yeah, I've just always been like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm essentially going to, you know, persevere through this business to a fault, you know, stubbornly, and having a great family support system has helped. But I got to say, having my wife, meeting my wife, and her just being cool with navigating through this business and supporting that emotionally, and you know, just being like all gung ho about it, it's been super instrumental. And I think, like, for folks looking at personal relationships and stuff, not to get too far into that, but folks that support your endeavors is super important in this business. Because you know, for instance, this conference last week, I worked 2 15-hour days in a row, like no excuses, no problems. And I'm also in a headspace that's like, I just can't really do any talking right now, because, you know, we're preparing to receive like the biggest people in the business and 600 other great big people that are cruising through this. And we're doing 28 panels and recording them all. I think some on the side as, but that takes a really interesting widespread kind of like mentality that you have to really work on, not getting too stressed out, not compartmentalizing all the different avenues, and trying to find a balance, a work-life balance, and disconnecting when you can, and also shifting gears when you can with all the different stuff, at least personally, that I'm working on. And again, like, I'd love to just be working on music all the time. You know, I'll quit everything and just work on music. But I was actually able to put out a 21-track album on September 9th. So that's 6 days before the conference. So I was working on that thing for 3 years on and off through this process. And as well as over that 3 years, I produced, I was working on a documentary, produced a documentary. I worked on that Training Day series and a number of other series I was working under the former Guild president, John Houlihan. He brought me onto a number of shows, and we were working on, I don't know, I think 130 songs on Training Day alone. And I don't know if you know anything about licensing or what it takes to get those deals done, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of outreach. You're almost like a private investigator trying to get to some of these writing parties or master rights holders, anything from Johnny Cash to Nelly to Imagine Dragons, or you name it, we probably licensed something similar or that one. Yeah, Deadpool 1 and 2 was all working on the same time. But it takes some people that's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, it is crazy. It's super crazy. But it's also I used to work in sheet metal fabrication, and I used to sell cars, and I used to do telemarketing, and I used to do catering, and all that shit that I used to do when I was young, and excuse my language, but all that stuff I used to do. I used to be sitting in little actual air conditioning ducts, building those, and being like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. How about look into something else, And then it took me a few years to get out of that. And I worked a lot of jobs, and all those jobs proved super valuable to my formative development, my ability to engage on a sales level, my ability to relate to people, whether that be the highest of high executives, or even just folks doing the service work that are, servicing our events in the facilities and the security teams and all the other ins and outs of management, and treating them all with, equivalent value. And all my mentors, I had I know I'm probably running on and on, but I went to a memorial for a gentleman named Gary Lamel, which you guys should all look up his credits. But he was basically one of the heads of Warner Brothers, but he passed away. I think he had some sort of dementia, and he was, starting to get in his later stages of life. But he was a mentor to, I'll name a few names, and then you can pick up the pieces. But one of them was Dave Jordan. One of them was John Houlihan. One of them was Jonathan McHugh. One of them was Thomas Golubic. And so, he did the music for the Batman movie in 1989. He did the Space Jam movie, all these huge soundtrack movies, bringing in guys like Prince or all the people they brought in for Space Jam, The Bodyguard, Maureen Crowe, all these people that residually over the course of the subsequent music supervisor generations were mentors to me. And the way he treated folks was when I was at his memorial, it was just resounding that he treated everyone the same. He treated all the folks in his life, his gardener, they said, his gardener and, the biggest artists in the world, he gave the same attention to. And I find that to be so valuable, because it residual ripple effect through my mentors, and my mentors treated me the same way. And now I feel a pressure and a responsibility to kind of do the same with folks, because that's how this business should work. And we're kind of in a stage where this business has had really big ups and really big downs as far as how certain executives are treating people and women and people of color. And I just don't see that. I don't see a place for that in going forward in our business. So, that's at least how I take it,
Oh, man,
So.
Once again, it's just and you don't ever have to apologize for continuing going, because you're basically sharing so many valuable things that people as music creators, people that are trying to get into the sync game and just trying to figure out what's their path. Your story is so inspiring, and it shows really just following your natural passions and skills. You just went ahead and did it. And then you just saw open doors, and you said yes to the opportunities, building relationships. And then, as you were saying, things can change pretty quickly. There's some pretty amazing stuff that happened all of a sudden. And you went from working inside of air conditioning ducts to working on stuff that's on Times
Yeah,
Square.
look, I'll show you. There's all these things up here. I used to make all that stuff back in the day. It was so much fun,
Okay.
but No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Well, the things you do in LA, I like in the last 6 months, I'm not ashamed to admit, like I was literally like demoing like props from like it's just like the things you do to pay rent while
Yeah.
you're doing all the creative cool stuff that you come to LA for, or whatever like media hub that you end up in if you decide to take that plunge.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to ask, like, where can people find your album?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a brand I started in 2009 called Can One Live. I'll type it in here if I can do that. I don't know. I'm not very.
Too. Yeah.
Can One Live. That's my website, and then you can find Can One Live, and the album is called Routines.exe. You can find it on Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff. So. And it's kind of like a more of an electronic music, kind of meets like retro synth, meets like vaporwave, hip hop, kind of. It's like a little hybrid kind of, but it's got a lot of like retro vibes to it too. So it's kind of fun. And all the titles are basically computer based. So when I did a release party on August 28th for a small group of people, just friends and family, but I made these like custom not flash drives. A common trope in the music supervisor thing is like everyone's always giving their demo, their CDs, their flash drives, and it's a tiresome endeavor for sure. And to be honest, a lot of them just sit, they collect, and it's unfortunate, but it's kind of the hustle, as everyone's got a great, again, like I said, a great catalog. So I created all these like custom, I painted what are they called? Sorry, memory drives from floppy disks. Sorry, from back in the day, and I painted them with like pastel 80s colors and triangles, and then I actually uploaded like an 8-bit version of one of my tracks because they can only fit, like 1.14 megabytes or something like that. So I converted it all to 8-bit and made it like a little chiptune version. And there's a lot of 8-bit sounds in my thing, so it kind of made sense. But I did it as a trope, like a joke, like, here, will you take my demo? And then the whole thing was like, well, yeah, hopefully I can find a way to put this in my, my computer, So, but I think it, it just was a fun joke, a fun gaffe, and I'm all about just kind of having fun with folks and making light of, I get the grind, like I make music too, but I also am in a funky situation because I'm the Guild executive director. So I can't be an active pitcher of music. So I had to find and earn a lot of friendships and trust and not pitch my music for 4 or 5 years and work on this project and in kind of a secret way, I still I'm not actively pitching my album. I'm just trying to like put something out and seeing what happens with it because unlike you guys, where you guys are like, can get in front of these supervisors and go, oh yeah, look, listen to my music, it's great, or come to my showcase or whatever. I have a little bit of a difference in that I can't do that as effectively or frequently. So, but again, it's just about, like I said, building solid friendships and connections is so important. And all these people are so cool if you let them be cool. Like if you bug them, they won't be cool. If you walk into a party and someone's going to pitch you when they walk in, it's kind of like, shoot, what, I know this is going to happen, whereas like when you become a person, they're like, and I know composers and I know music producers and I know, even people who have vast, large catalogs, they are amazing, cool people, and they treat people as cool people. And that to me is so important because when I walk into a room and I see someone from APM Music or someone from Killer Tracks or someone from West One Music Group or wherever, these, even the smaller companies like JC3, I'm like, oh, it's so good to see you because of how they conduct themselves etiquette wise, or they know when the business is done, it's done through these coffee meetings or it's done through these like emails on, hey, good to see you last night. I just wanted to follow up and blah, 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 and they know how supervisors work and they know that supervisors will essentially come to them if they need something because they know they have the product and you just need to be ready for that. So getting your metadata in order, and learning. A lot of you folks, I hope you know what metadata is. If you don't, I would encourage you to figure out what that is. Using programs that are really easy to access, like Disco is a company, disco.ac is, music, kind of an easy music supervision tool that is becoming very popular. Source Audio is another one where you can put all your metadata into these platforms and put your album art, put your name, put your contact information, put your percentage of splits in, your publishing percentages. Because if I'm doing outreach to get a song in and I can't find this 12% writer share, maybe you had a guitarist come in and he fell off the face of the earth and I can't get him to get in touch with this person, I ain't licensing that song, man, because I got to move on. The deadline's on Friday, and we love the track, but it's a mess, or like notifying if you make hip hop, like if you have samples in your stuff, like notifying what sample you use, and try not to use samples. That's a big aspect. Like, and if you do use authorized sources like Splice, and make sure that you really make it unique and special, as opposed to like looping some old thing that, could be potentially a legal liability in the future. And if you have to realize, like, when you're working on a project like Training Day for Warner Brothers, like every email that I send, or every contract that I write, or every, quote request that I receive could end up in a potential lawsuit. And I don't want to deal with that. And I know Warner Brothers doesn't want to deal with that. So if you can make it easy to make it accessible for the supervisor, make their job and lives a little easier. And you have to understand that they're probably working on 7 shows simultaneously, or like someone wrote Deadpool 1 and 2, as well as John Wick 2, as well as Shape of Water, all these shows and movies I was working on with John, or he was working on while I was working on other stuff. A lot of bandwidth is being used up, and they're getting inundated with thousands of emails, not only from music creators and libraries, but for directors and label owners and all that stuff, as well as being the president of the guild. That you can imagine what kind of work that would require. So and that's a volunteer effort. So just think about their headspace before you think about your own headspace. And I think that goes a long, 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 long way. And I see folks doing very effective uses of, I have a great catalog, but I'm actually getting syncs. I'm actually getting to these supervisors, and how are they doing that? And it really comes down to being a cool person and being someone that, will first of all, you have to have great music. That's a factor. You have to have a cool personality. You have to be someone that people want to work with. You have to give them an easy product that is a good product. So like I said, with the metadata, with the publishing, what they call easy clear is huge. One stop is another a great term. If you are a one stop production, that means we go to one place and we get it all cleared in one place. If I license a song from a major artist, like any hip hop, or I'm not going to name any names, but like you can imagine, some people will be like, I brought this one person in and they play a triangle on the track, and I gave them 1% share. I'm like, wow, cool. I'm going to have to go get that clearance, and they're going to come in. And getting your co-writers to be like, yeah, we're cool with this amount, or we're cool with you taking the majority lead, and we'll just put, MFN, most favored nations, is a huge term. So knowing what that is, and getting your folks to just be like, yeah, I'm game. Let's get this done. Huge, 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 huge. And work with people that are pros, man. Work with people that will have that mentality, that are all working towards it. So, I hope I touched on some of those things, but it's really about making this job easy for you, making this job easy for them. We all know you make great music, and, also figure out what your niche is. Figure out, like, what do you fit more for ads? Do you fit more for trailers? Do you fit more for TV? And don't assume, get feedback, and most favored nation. Sorry, let me type that. Most favored nations. It's a business term. It's a clause basically that is, let's say you have a group of co-publishers, and you say, I want, let's say a TVQ is like a $1,200 a side thing, or whatever. All budgets range, so I can't really speak to anything specifically, but let's say the master says, I want 1,200, and then the publishing is like, I want 1,500, but the master says 1,200 most favored nations, then they get the same amount of the highest amount that the whatever publisher says they got. So let's say that 1,500 was the highest amount. Everyone now that says MFN will get that amount. It works great for most songs. I think some songs that might fall into problems is like covers. You know, if you're looking at like I did a cover of the Bee Gees or something, and I'm expecting to get Bee Gees money, it's probably not going to happen. You know, the master is going to get, or I mean, sorry, the publishing is going to get whatever they get. Let's say they want to get 20 grand or 12 grand or whatever. You're gonna shoot for what you get, because what might happen is the budget can't afford, you know, they can maybe afford that BG side, but like to match it, to get another 12,000 for it is very tough. And that really works a lot in, like, let's say karaoke covers. I've done some karaoke things where like there's no way they could expect to match, because most likely the quality's not as good, or you know, again, it's just about getting the deal done. And since they have this like weight of establishment, I don't want to speak too freely here, but the weight of establishment, let's say it's the Bee Gees, let's say it's you know, Elvis Presley or some big name that they've used their legacy to build upon, you're essentially dovetailing off that legacy. So you kind of have to expect like you're borrowing from them in a sense. And so as it were, they're the ones kind of like that wrote the song. So you have to kind of like appreciate that. I would hope, you know, but just those are terms that are commonly used and thrown around. But if, let's say you wrote a song with your buddies or some pros that are playing guitar or whatever on your tracks, the MFN is more applicable there, because you all kind of made an original track and then, you know, elevated it to the level you elevated it to. So you should possibly all get equal share, you know, and then you would divvy that up per the 200% of the, you know, the shares, you know. So if you have 30% of a $2,000 thing, you get 30% or whatever, you know. So I hope that helps. I don't know, you know.
Totally helps, man. And just want to thank you so much. You've been so generous with the detail of your answers and just answering the questions that people are popping up in the chat. Usually we'll go and ask a couple of questions from the chat, but you've been a bunch of them.
Just to address Lori's question, by the way, it gets written. So what happens is I send out, like, I want to license Little Nas X, you know, right? I want to license that song. And then I go to their respective parties, which is probably, I would say Capitol Records or something like that at this time. So I would go to Capitol for the master, and I would go to their writers. So maybe it's a manager, maybe it's Sony ATV or something. I don't know exactly who it is at this time, but I would go to their publishing or their rights holders and administrators, and I would say, I want to license this song. Can you please, or maybe I also buffer that with like, I only have this much money. So is this a ballpark that we can fit in? Or they'll go, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. And then in that's where you would find the MFN thing that gets written on the quote request form. And it's a form that I would have to send out for every asking party for every percentage that, you know, that particular song or any particular song would hold. And then they would return the quote request sheet back to me with the terms as they're broken down. And then we would go, great, thanks. And then we may elect to license that once we put it for mix or whatever. Sometimes we'll just go get the quote. So if you get a quote, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a deal. It means that we're discussing it, and we may have some alts or some options, but we want to make sure when we go into a meeting with the Bruckheimer team or the director of a movie or a writer, it's a very complicated room. And we just did a panel on like mixed stage etiquette for the conference. So when we release that, it'll be more, maybe your headspace can get more around what it's like to be in that room. But it could be like, we love this song, and then all of a sudden the next day, like they didn't have coffee in the writer's room or the mix room. And then they're like, oh, I hate this track. And then after they have coffee, they're like, no, you know what? I love it. So it's this battle that you do. And you're in this room, like, you know, once a week for 6 months or, you know, whatever per episode or whatever. So, and with a movie, it can be very, very long. It could be over the course of a year and a half. And maybe an editor throws something in the mix early on, and they love it, and then they go, I don't like this anymore. Let me get some alts, and that's where we'll get the clearance request forms for you guys. And then we decide, let's do this track. And then what we would do is we would send a confirm letter to you saying we were using this. And then you would get notification based on the quote request. Usually the quote requests have some kind of time limit. So let's say it's 90 days. And if a big label says that, like it's a 90-day limit, usually they're cool about it if it goes longer than that. But you have to like establish that that's still an applicable quote, but that's usually how it works. So.
Thanks for the answer. Just want to be mindful of your time as far as everything, but usually when we bring people on, we like to like at least screen like a few songs from the people that are in the course. Just get your quick take on them.
Bring it.
Awesome. So we're just going to jump straight into that now. First up, we got Justina Chandler. Just a heads up, when it's on the stream, it seems like it strips out some of the low end information.
Sure.
So just a heads up there. Let's go ahead and pull this track up.
I'll put the other headphone in. Get that stereo mix going.
Yeah. Oh, hang on a sec. Yeah, SoundCloud autoplays. Here we go. I'm going to share screen.
Cool.
Here we go. Share computer sound. All right. Here we go.
We cast our vote. We're red or blue. We side with lies or with the truth. We're right or left, right or wrong. Can't be in the middle. We know the way life should be. We hope one day the enemy will see the light and come to our side little by little. It's a hard road up ahead, but it's not us, it's them. 'Cause we are the experts, we will be forever. Yeah, we are the experts, we have all the answers. We are the experts, we know better. The world's under the weather, but no matter, 'cause we are the experts. We talk in terms, we are the experts, we know better. Doers, we could all do better. Just
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Is Justina here in the room?
Are you here? Let's see if I can find you so I can unmute you. Wave your hand if you're here. Let's see if we can find you. Are you here? I don't see you.
Cool. Well, I'll just
speak. Be on the call.
Yeah, cool. I'll speak just quickly. I thought the track was great. I think it could lend its hand into like ads pretty well and trailers. It really fits in that realm. It's very like, it's got like, a lot of stuff in the music licensing or music publishing realm is like what terms you use to categorize. And obviously there's like an uplifting vibe to it. It's got great builds and rises. I would like the drums to maybe kick in a little sooner, because I know the way we listen to music and the way a lot of supervisors listen to music is like in that little like 15 seconds, and then they'll skip, and then they'll go to the chorus, and then they do this really quick. I like to kind of listen to the songs and give them a shot, but I know a lot of supervisors are like, I don't got time, bing, 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 and they want those builds, they want those rises. And I think it does get to that. I think eventually it gets to those things. And I heard at like, I think the 8-second mark, there was a really nice delay that popped in there. Maybe that could be a little bit more prominent or a little bit more upfront, but I thought, definitely could find its way through music licensing realm,
Thanks, man. Thanks for the feedback. Next up, we got Nick Cocazella is up, and let's pull this track open. It doesn't look like it has a title, or maybe they didn't put it in the track here. Let's see. Share. Oh, there we go.
That's dope, man. Ads is the first thing that comes up to mind there. Or maybe some kind of like social media branding, like influencer music, a lot of that stuff kind of is a new avenue as well, but that's a definite ads track for sure. But you could find your way, like, with some brand that's like, we want this track for our theme, so just look into that avenue. I think, is Nick on the line or whatever? I think Nick would love probably my project. It's very it's got very Nintendo-y vibes, and so does mine. So I appreciate it. I spent the last 3 years kind of making a lot of using a lot of those chiptune sounds. So it was cool.
Yeah. Once again, I don't see him on the call, but yeah. Everybody who isn't on the call is definitely going to check out the replay, and they're going to be super geeked that you took.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Got time for a couple more?
Yeah, I got time. I'm chilling.
Hey, thanks so much.
I don't have to do anything. It's fine. I'll just quit today. I'm going to retire anyway. So
just listen to our songs all the time. That's really appreciate your time, by the way. This next one's by Chelsea Old Meadow. And it looks like it's, let's see, there's 4 versions. Which one? I think it's this one. That's instrumental TV. Okay, got it. Here we go. All right, let me just share this.
Chelsea.
All right, here we go.
Hey, you with the crazy moves, dancing like there's nobody in the room. I like it, I love it. I like it, I love it. Hey, you with the way more curves than a bottle of cherry cola. I like it, I love it. I like it, I love it. In a world where you can be anything, anything, why don't you be yourself? Hey, you with the in a world where you can be anything, anything, why don't you be yourself?
That's pretty baller, dude. So the first vibe that really stands out to me is like, this could be a situation where someone wants that "Hey Mickey, You're So Fine" track, and then they're like, we can't afford that, so let's get an option that would sound similar but not be an infringement. So this would be a great alternative use for that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I think that there's so much business being done that it's a gray area, but like a lot of things are like, we can't afford Kanye West or whatever, but we want the same energy being brought. And so this is a great alternative to that. It's very it has like a really good montage vibes, but it also has like, it's got like Cake or Beck vibes, and also maybe some Gorillaz in there, but then with like a powerful female driven vocal. It's like, there's a lot that you could do with that. And honestly, certain parts of that track you could use with a totally different medium, so it's pretty cool. So
thanks so much for your feedback. Do you have time for one more?
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. So last one of the session here. We got Real Williams here.
The real deal. I see you on the line here, dude.
Song is called It's a Hard Time. It's a Hard Time. Here we go. Let's share this. Boom. All right, here we go.
Wait, pause it real quick. Is that disco I see, dude? Do I see some disco in this bunk here? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. This guy knows the deal right here. Disco, downloadable, super, and he's got the Reverb Nation stuff going on there.
That's the best. It's what we use. So cool. It's yeah.
All of us, yes, it's a hard time for every one of us. I know the struggle's just a hustle, but it's trouble if you leave it by the glory of the reasons that you are. It's a hard time. Oh,
Pretty cool. Yeah. That was guitar. Is that you playing the guitar? No, it's great though. I would say that would be, this is a good period song. So like 70s kind of Woodstock, or 60s, 70s Woodstock era, would be like a thing where you could put that in, and it would be, you know, probably good for documentaries of that era. Even though it's not actual period, it's probably recreated, but it still sounds like it could fit in that time. And as well as like the way the electric guitar stylings are, it's very, you know, like Hendrix or that era. I think the drums, they're maybe off a little bit. Like you might need to like slide them one way or another, but once you get those locked in, I think it's a really solid track, you know?
Cool. Thanks so much for all your time today. It's been a real pleasure interviewing you. By the way, I didn't even introduce myself. My name's John Kleinbell.
Yeah, for sure, man. Are you LA local, or where you at?
Yeah, I'm on the west side.
What's up, dude? We getting coffee or what?
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right,
Cool.
we're doing it. So yeah, thanks again, everybody who is here, everybody who's on the replay. Thanks so much for your time, everybody, and have a
Oh yeah, dude. Seriously, someone wrote Tom Waits in the mix here. I was thinking the same thing. Tom Waits, Cat Stevens, you know, all that. Agree.
Yeah.
Strong agree. Sorry.
Thanks so much for all your time and your generosity with everything. We really appreciate it. And
Cool.
I'll have you get on again sometime soon.
Cool. Everyone, take my email. I'll write it in the mix here just so you guys feel like you get something out of this whole thing.
We get so much out of it. Just be prepared.
Bear with me. My email bandwidth is crazy, so I will try to get back to you all. But
everybody in this course to be super respectful
yeah,
when it comes to people's time and everything like that. So hopefully.
cool. And then follow me on social media if you want to keep in touch. Or reach out to me through there. That's another avenue. But hopefully you got some value out of this whole thing. And you know, if you guys are in LA, reach out. If you guys want to figure out what's going on with the Guild, we have 2 big events. Our next event coming up is the Guild of Music Supervisors Awards, their 10th anniversary. So that is a huge event for us. And we oftentimes need like 40 to 50 volunteers, and you may be able to be like a talent runner or sponsorship help or whatever. And you know, my first time I ever did it, I was working as a talent runner for Mike Knobloch, or you know, just randomly. So you just never know what that's going to entail or who you're going to be rubbing shoulders with or whatever. And it maybe, I won't say it will change your life, but it will change maybe the path that you're on, the trajectory you're on. And hopefully you can make some solid use and solid contacts out of just, you know, giving us a little bit of help. And in essence, you'll hopefully, you know, get a cool experience out of it, you know?
Thanks, man. Oh, by the way, it looks like maybe you privately messaged the email, because I'm seeing some people saying they didn't.
I don't know what I'm doing here. I just gave it to Elaine personally. So sorry. How do I do? Oh, everyone
privately messages you on here. It just changes your default message.
Well, thanks, Elaine. Elaine is the only one that gets my email now. So bye. No, I'm just kidding.
Gatekeeper.
Hold on one second. And then or here. Cool. All right. That's that. And then that's all I got, folks. I don't know. I pretend to like know what's going on, but I really have no idea. So, you know, hopefully I don't lead you too far astray, you know?
No, man. No, man. This has been so valuable. We can't thank you enough. And like I said, hopefully we'll have you on again sometime soon. Have a good rest of your week, man.
Cool. Yeah. See you guys.
Week, everybody. All right. See you soon.